So nothing has changed on the XM since the last video. Welcome back to Seaside Garage and the XM. I am currently trying to figure out why I'm having this starting issue, but it's not only a starting issue because it is smelling a lot of fuel and it's not running completely clean always. Sometimes it seems to run on all 6 cylinders, sometimes 3 or 4. It's a bit random. I have a feeling that there is a sensor problem somewhere, but it could also be worn components. But what I'm going to do now, because I am attempting to get an engine tester that can test stuff through this, because I think I can get some live data from these sensors and so on with a Lexia setup. So I'm trying to either buy one of those or maybe lend a system to do that. But I have tried to do a bit of manual fault searching on this one, because even though it's a complicated system, it is pretty much simple still, because remember, this is 91, so everything relies pretty much on sensors, and there aren't that many of them also. So what I have done right now is I measured out the coolant sensor. That seems to be all right, because that could explain the running issue if the engine thinks it's cold all the time. But at least the sensor seems to check out all right. Now I went to check the crankshaft sensor, and it turns out that it doesn't, well, it has a crankshaft sensor, but it also has a camshaft sensor. According to the paperwork I found online, it seems as though the crankshaft sensor is actually used for the diagnostic stick. I'm not sure how that works out. It is connected to the wiring loom, so it is giving the signal up here, but it's called the diagnostic sensor. The other sensor, I think, is what the ECU uses to alter the ignition timing. And let me show you what I found. Because right down there in the depth is the crankshaft sensor, and up here is the camshaft sensor. The connectors for the crankshaft sensor is right here. Let me just unplug that. And the white one down here I already unplugged is the connector for the camshaft sensor. As far as I can see, it's the same sensor, even though the connectors are different colors. It seems to be the same part number at least. So, and if I measure the crankshaft sensor like that, and according to what I see on the internet on these sensors, they are supposed to be at 370 or 80 ohms. But let's check the other one, because that's the one that is the camshaft sensor. You will notice that it is showing a completely different scale. It's a mega ohm, but 2.48. So there is a lot of resistance in this one. Luckily, I have a spare lying around for this. It's a different color stick, but it seems to be completely the same. So I'm going to try to change that and see if it makes any difference. Okay, so I just realized that I have fucked up a little bit, because I have been measuring on the wrong sensor. I thought I could see the wire and where it went, but I have just measured on the wrong sensor. I don't even know what I measured on, but definitely not the right one, because this is black. It's the throttle positioning sensor, I think I measured on. So those readings are most likely right. This is the one that I should have measured. Let's just hope it's reading something wrong, otherwise I have just wasted time. Yep. It's perfectly fine. What a complete waste of time. Anyway, this is going back in. Yes, I am shooting a little bit in the blind at the moment, but I don't have a Lexia, so this is just what I have to do. But I can hear it is misfiring, and I would like to figure out which one of the cylinders is misfiring and why. Firstly, I would like to check if there is a spark coming to it. I'm just going to connect the timing gun to the main lead from the distributor, just to verify that we're getting spark from that. Of course we are, the engine is running, but also that it seems to be pretty constant. And then let's try these. That looks all right. Let's try this. That's not smooth. That looks better. But the middle one is a little bit unstable. Let's check the other bank. Just fine. This one is also very bad. Gone right now, actually. And then the last one. That looks to be all right. But the middle ones on both sides seems to be a little bit off. I'm just gonna mark them up. I have removed the distributor cap, and I know a lot of you would just say change the cap, the rotor, and the wires. Well, I don't like changing stuff that is possible to fix. That's one thing. Another thing is this is, at least if you can find it, it's around 200 euros, I think. I cannot even find it. So it's not on the table right now to just buy another one. They are not looking too nice down there, but maybe I can clean them up. Firstly, I would just like to check for continuity between them, because that could indicate a problem. Let's just go ahead and check. There's nothing. The connection is really bad on all of them. I presume, or I know, the spark will jump anyway because it is running, but this could cause a lot of the misfires and maybe even the complete dead cylinder, because this one is one of them, and this one also, which are the one that caused problems. I will do my best to clean this up. I'm actually gonna throw it in my sandblaster tomorrow to just blast the terminals using glass. I can also blast it down here and then clean it up. Then hopefully that will fix some of the problems, maybe more than expecting, because maybe the connection actually gets worse when it heats up. I don't really know. It's a lot better, at least. So there we go. They now look shiny. At least you can still see wear marks, but it is way better. Also, the really corroded one is difficult to see, but it's also way better. So this will be a big difference for sure. And hopefully it will fix our misfiring issue. I'm just going to clean it up so we don't get sand in there or glass. With the rotor cap back on, I just want to mention one thing. I did check the rotor arm in there as well. It looks clean. I did not take it out because it's fitted with 3 screws and they were incredibly tight. And I couldn't really get them loose, to be honest. But it looks just fine, so I think that will be okay. Let's fire it up and see if all spark plugs and leads are now firing cleanly and without any misfires. Okay, so I gotta say it is running completely different. Sounds a lot more smooth. Whoa. Way better. Let's just check the bad ones. Perfect. Perfect. Ah, that made a world of difference. Sometimes it's just the simple basic stuff. Wow. But there's one thing else that I would like to check, because I still think that this engine is over-fueling, because it is still smelly more than you would expect. And I do expect it to be hard to start still when hot. So I would like to check the fuel pressure regulator next. Nice. It actually seems to be restarting more easily also, but it is smelling a lot of fuel, so I think we have a fuel problem also. There are several reasons why that could happen. It could be a broken lambda O2 sensor, or it could be a leak somewhere. It could also be leaking injectors that are dripping when they are not supposed to. But I'm going to start at the simple stuff, because right here is a fuel pressure regulator. The injection system needs a constant pressure to work, but that pressure needs to follow the engine load. So the fuel pressure regulator will normally add more fuel when you see boost in the intake from a turbo. There's no turbo on this one. This is going to see vacuum, but that vacuum will change according to the revs. The fuel pressure regulator needs to work. There's a membrane in between. It's seeing fuel pressure on one side, intake pressure on the other side. If the membrane in between those parts are broken, then it won't work. But another thing that could be a possibility is that the hose itself is not working. Remember, the hose for this part of the system, the throttle intake system, was perished. So I'm going to check that firstly, because that would be really easy. To be honest, the best way to do this would be to rig up a fuel pressure tester. It's a bit embarrassing, but I don't have one at the moment because the old one broke and I haven't bought another one. But I'm going to check that line firstly, because it's hiding underneath this plate, and then the vacuum line goes underneath there. It's right here. It goes up to the other one up here that was perished. Let's just unclog that like that. And I'm just going to try to blow into that hose. There's absolutely no resistance, so there's something wrong at least. That was easy. I was actually thinking about rigging up my smoke tester to smoke test the entire intake, because maybe a lot of vacuum leaks are present. But let's just fix this one as a beginning. Oh yeah. That's a pretty big leak. I love these kinds of fixes where nothing is really broken. It just needs to be cleaned, or something needs to be changed. I mean, when the main parts are serviceable, that's the best. Yep, this fits. It is a fuel line. I don't think that will matter much though, but it's the only thing I got. In a way, I'm a bit embarrassed that I didn't check that rotor cap a bit before starting to measure out sensors and all that, because it's basic stuff. But I think this engine is so complicated comparing to what I normally work on that I don't expect basic stuff to be the problems. But so far, pretty much most of the problems were actually pretty basic. So let's go ahead and fire it up once more and see if it smells differently. So I don't know if you've seen this, but in previous videos it was pretty smoky when I gave it some throttle, and it looked like smoke from too much fuel. It's cold right now, but it looks way better. There is some water though, but that's just condensation. It seems to be smelling less rich now. Maybe. At least it is picking up revs a lot better now. That's way better. I'm just gonna let it heat up and then try to restart it and see if that problem is still there, or we have fixed something by doing this. So it's a bit later. The engine is pretty much It's getting warm. Let's try to restart it and see if it has made any difference to that, especially that backfiring thing that happens sometimes. The battery seems a bit strained though. Maybe it's not recharging, but it did start up pretty easily. Let's try again. Oh, it's still having that different in cranking speed from time to time, but no backfiring so far. I'd say that is pretty damn good. I think we got that hot starting issue solved. I just wrapped the video up and then I wanted to start it up to drive it outside, and now listen to this. We're back to a hard starting issue, but it doesn't backfire the same way as before, but it's still not easy to get to run. I'm just gonna try full throttle. Still that weird. That was actually one of the backfires back. So I think it's safe to say that the problem is not completely resolved, but at least now we got it to run on all cylinders without misfires. And we now got a fuel pressure regulator that is hooked up. So maybe we are closer to fixing it. It is at least running a lot better when it's running, but it doesn't really want to start yet. But this will be all for now. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.